He was earning £30 a game, working in a factory, and wearing an ankle tag. 10 years later, he was breaking Premier League records and lifting the trophy with Leicester City. This is the unbelievable rise of Jamie Vardy, from Sunday League to football royalty. Oh, and welcome to Perspective Football. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. You know, a lot of players these days come up through fancy academies. They get picked up at 8 or 9 years old, go through all the elite training, and are moulded into professionals from the start. Jamie Vardy didn't have that. In fact, at 16, he was released by Sheffield Wednesday. They told him he was too small, not good enough. That could have been it. Most people would have taken that hit and walked away from football completely. But Vardy didn't. He dropped down to play for Stocksbridge Park Steels, a non-league club playing in the 8th tier of English football. And this wasn't glamorous. We're talking about small crowds, uneven pitches, and barely any attention. He got a move to Halifax Town in 2010, and that was his first real turning point. He scored 26 goals in 37 appearances. He wasn't just scoring tap-ins, he was outpacing defenders, hitting screamers, and showing the kind of hunger you only get when football is your way out. That year, Halifax won the Northern Premier League, and Vardy was their top scorer. It was clear that he had outgrown that level. You had lower league clubs sniffing around, but it was Fleetwood Town who made the move in 2011. That was a step up into the Conference Premier, still non-league, but just one tier below the Football League. And once again, Vardy delivered. He scored 31 goals in 36 games and helped Fleetwood win promotion to League Two. He wasn't just a good player at that level, he was dominating. He was earning around £30 a week playing football. That wasn't going to pay the bills, so he was also working full-time shifts at a carbon fibre factory. Imagine waking up early, doing a long day at a physically demanding job, then training or playing in the evening. And it didn't stop there. At one point in his life, he had an electronic tag on his ankle because of an off-field incident, and he had to be subbed off early from games just so he could get home before his 6 p.m. curfew. That's how restricted his life was. But despite all that, Vardy never let go of the game. At Stocksbridge, he spent years developing his raw pace, his timing and his movement. He wasn't the most technical player back then, but he was relentless. He kept going, kept improving, and eventually, people started to notice. In just 2 seasons, he had gone from playing in front of a few hundred people to being linked with professional clubs across the country. The story wasn't a fairy tale yet, but you could see it building. This wasn't luck or hype. It was years of hard work, rejection and persistence finally starting to pay off. He didn't burst onto the scene overnight. His rise was slow, gritty, and built on real struggle. He had to earn every step of the way. No shortcuts, no handouts, just pure determination. By 2012, Jamie Vardy had done everything he could at the non-league level. 2 straight seasons of top scoring form, first at Halifax, then Fleetwood, and it was clear he was ready for the professional game. But the move that came next wasn't just surprising, it was record-breaking. Leicester City, a championship club at the time, paid £1 million to sign him. That made him the most expensive non-league player in history. Some questioned why Leicester were investing so much in someone from the 5th tier, and truthfully, Vardy struggled at first. The jump in quality from the Conference to the Championship is massive. Suddenly, he was playing against defenders who were faster, stronger and smarter. His first season at Leicester wasn't great. He scored just 4 goals in 26 appearances. Confidence dropped. There were reports that he considered walking away from the game completely. The pressure, the criticism, the self-doubt, it was all piling up. But this is where things started to change behind the scenes. Leicester manager Nigel Pearson played a huge role. Pearson knew Vardy had something different, something that couldn't be taught. Pearson believed in him even when the numbers didn't. He backed Vardy to keep working, to keep adapting, and to push through the difficult phase. The club gave him the time and support to adjust. And Vardy, in return, started to find his rhythm. He improved his fitness, sharpened his instincts, and slowly became more confident on the pitch. By the 2013-14 season, everything clicked. Vardy became a regular starter, and that year Leicester won the championship, finishing top of the table with over 100 points. Vardy scored 16 goals and was a crucial part of their promotion campaign. But it was a clear sign that Vardy had finally adapted to professional football. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was starting to thrive. When Leicester got promoted to the Premier League, a lot of people assumed Vardy would be left behind, that maybe the top flight would be a step too far. But he'd been doubted before. He was released at 16, ignored by pro clubs for years, and told he wouldn't make it past non-league, and every single time he found a way to prove people wrong. That's the thing with Vardy. He's not a typical footballer. He didn't come into the Premier League polished and protected. He came in scarred, tested, and sharpened by years in the lower leagues. And now, he was about to show the top level just how dangerous that could be. So in 2014, Leicester made it to the Premier League, and at that time, Jamie Vardy was 27. For most players, that's the peak. For him, it was his debut season in top-flight football. And unlike the polished stars around him, Vardy didn't arrive with international caps, highlight reels, or a huge price tag. He came with raw speed, work rate, and a chip on his shoulder. At that point, people were still calling him a non-league striker. His story was well known among Leicester fans, but outside that circle, he was seen as a workhorse, someone who'd maybe bring energy off the bench, but not someone to rely on in the big moments. The first half of the season proved those doubts right. Vardy only scored once in his first 21 Premier League games. Leicester were stuck at the bottom of the table. The team was disjointed, the results weren't coming, and they looked destined for relegation. But what no one saw coming was what would happen in those final 2 months of the season. In April 2015, Leicester were dead last. Mathematically, it was nearly impossible to stay up. But they didn't just survive. They mounted one of the most unbelievable escapes in Premier League history. They won 7 of their final 9 matches. They didn't just avoid relegation, they finished 14th. Vardy didn't score every game, but his influence in those final weeks was clear. His pressing, his aggression, his relentlessness, they disrupted opponents and lifted the team. His last-minute winner against West Brom summed it up. It wasn't just about skill, it was about belief. That great escape gave Leicester confidence. But the real turning point came in the summer. Nigel Pearson left, and Claudio Ranieri came in. A lot of people laughed at that appointment. Some called it a step backward. But Ranieri brought something Leicester needed: simplicity. He didn't overcomplicate tactics. He kept the team shape compact, focused on fast transitions, and most importantly, he trusted Jamie Vardy to lead the line. And then 2015-16 began. From the very first game of the season, Leicester versus Sunderland, it was clear Vardy was playing on a different level. He opened the scoring that day with a trademark darting run and header. From there, the momentum never stopped. He scored against West Ham, then Bournemouth, then Aston Villa. Every week, he just kept scoring. And it wasn't just tap-ins. Vardy was scoring in every way: headers, volleys, breakaways. Against Arsenal, he beat the offside trap, cut in on his right foot. Against Liverpool, he scored one of the best goals of the season, a first-time volley from 25 yards over Mignolet after Mahrez lofted it in behind. But the defining moment came in late November. Jamie Vardy had scored in 10 straight Premier League games, one behind the record held by Manchester United legend Ruud van Nistelrooy. The 11th match was, fittingly, against United, and Vardy didn't just match the record, he broke it. In the 24th minute, he latched onto a through ball from Christian Fuchs and slotted it past De Gea. The stadium erupted. That wasn't just a goal, it was history. A player who was playing non-league football 4 years earlier had now scored in 11 straight Premier League games, more than any player in the history of the league. And what made it even more staggering was who he was scoring against. This wasn't a streak padded with lower half teams. He scored against Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool and Manchester United. These were the giants of English football. And here was Vardy, relentless, fearless and completely unstoppable. By Christmas, Leicester was top of the table. They were consistent, defensively solid and absolutely lethal on the break. Mahrez was brilliant. Kante was everywhere, but Vardy was the finisher. By the end of the season, Vardy had scored 24 league goals. He was named the FWA Footballer of the Year, beating out Mahrez and Payet. But most importantly, Leicester City had done the impossible. They won the Premier League. Leicester, a team with no recent history of success, a team that had almost been relegated the year before, were now champions of England. And Vardy was the face of that title charge. He wasn't a supporting cast member. He was the headline. He'd gone from working part-time in a carbon fibre factory to lifting the Premier League trophy at the King Power Stadium. In the process, he didn't just win a league, he tore down the entire idea of what a top-level footballer needed to be. Vardy didn't come through an elite academy. He didn't have a nutritionist at 15. He fought his way up through the deepest levels of English football, earning respect at every step. By the time he lifted that trophy, no one was calling him just a non-league striker anymore. He was the new king of strikers. Jamie Vardy didn't just win the Premier League. He changed how people think about footballers, about talent, and about the system that produces elite players. Before Vardy, the path to the Premier League was narrow and rigid. You were either scouted young, placed into an academy, and polished through years of structured development. Players who fell through the cracks rarely made it back in. And non-league players, they were almost invisible. Vardy destroyed that logic. He proved that a player's value isn't just about where they came from, it's about what they can do when it matters. His story made clubs start to rethink how they scouted talent. More and more, teams began to seriously track players in lower divisions. Non-league wasn't a dead end anymore, it was a potential goldmine. But his legacy isn't just about what he changed for others. It's also about how he carried himself during the years that followed. After the title-winning season, he had every reason to take a big-money move. Arsenal came in for him. Others were interested. But Vardy stayed loyal to Leicester. That was a massive statement. He could have chased more trophies or higher wages, but he believed in what he helped build. And that loyalty wasn't passive. He stayed competitive. In the seasons after Leicester's title win, Vardy never dropped off. He adapted. As he got older, he refined his game. He still had the speed, but he started relying more on his positioning and timing. His movement became smarter. His finishing became even more efficient, and the goals kept coming. In 2019-20, at the age of 33, Vardy won the Premier League Golden Boot with 23 goals. He wasn't a young rising star anymore. He was one of the oldest strikers in the league and still outscored everyone. That season, he became the oldest player ever to win the Golden Boot in the Premier League era. Vardy had hit double figures in Premier League goals for 6 straight seasons after the title win. He delivered against the big clubs. He scored in the FA Cup. He scored in Europe. One of his most underrated achievements came in 2021 when Leicester won the FA Cup for the first time in their history. It wasn't Vardy who scored in the final, but his presence across that tournament, his experience, his leadership, his consistency was vital. For Leicester fans, that FA Cup win was a continuation of the dream, and Vardy was still right there, playing his part. But beyond the trophies and the stats, Vardy's legacy is about what he represented. He became a symbol of belief. For every late bloomer, for every overlooked talent, for every player told they were too old, too raw, too late. He was proof that hard work, resilience and pure hunger could still punch through the system. Even his work off the pitch reflected that. In 2020, Vardy became a co-owner of Rochdale AFC, a club in the lower leagues. That wasn't a PR move, that was personal. He knew what it felt like to play for clubs without resources or media attention. He wanted to give something back, to protect that pathway, to keep it open for the next Vardy. And now, as he nears the end of his career, his story stands complete. A Sunday League winger, a non-league striker, a Premier League champion, a Golden Boot winner, a record breaker, and someone who never let background define potential. You can talk about legends with more goals, with more medals, with longer careers at the top. But what Vardy did was rare. Not just for the drama of the story, but for the impact it had on the entire football structure in England. He forced everyone to look deeper and think differently, and that might be his greatest legacy. But what do you think is his greatest legacy? Well, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you.